welcome to the Stretch2Go Podcast. My name is Ian Ray. Today I have the great privilege of having Chris Frederick, co-founder of the Stretch2Win Institute, based in Chandler, Arizona. Chris, welcome to the Stretch2Go Podcast.
Happy to be here.
Right. I know you and Ann have been on podcasts before, past several years. I've been kind of backtracking maybe like 5 years or so of podcast episode that you guys been on, and I want to take a different spin, if that's okay. I'm still on FST, obviously, Stretch2Win, but I'm really foot health and barefoot shoes, and I recently just got back from an expo, but I want to get your point of view.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't help you in detail, but it wasn't honest enough time, and I have a big background in feet, so we can talk about it.
Perfect. Okay.
Oh yeah, I'm like game for whatever. I'm Mr. Improv here.
Okay, fair enough. Because the question is, so my podcast, basically, just really quick before we begin, is I created based off of FST on the Stretch2Win, my experience of finding FST and how I love to hear stories from different perspective of the practitioners and how they found FST and Stretch2Win. Because there wasn't a podcast, basically had people who went to the course and their experience and just really portraying the light on Stretch2Win. And so I started doing that on my first season, but now the second season I just had finishing up, I started getting into barefoot shoes synonymously the same time that I started FST. So I found, minimalist shoes, barefoot shoes to really help me with a lot of my foot issues that I had. And it made a profound effect where I'm like, I think everyone should learn about the foot and how the footwear choices should be really talked about. So that's how I got into barefoot shoes, and then I started interviewing all these different brands and people in the foot health. So now I'm trying to merge this world of fascia, of foot health, and barefoot shoes into this one world because I think they're all related. It's all related. It's all about taking care of the body and looking at it globally. So yeah, that's where I'm at. So basically, we're going to be kind of going over that in that aspect because, like I said, a lot of my audience is, people who have been in foot health or barefoot shoes or in fascia. So yeah, I'd like to kind of take your spin. And of course, we talk about how FST is the missing link. And I think the missing link for a lot of these barefoot shoe people, because, they look at the foot, they've unlocked the foot, but they still have pain. I still talk to a lot of clients or even people at the expo, they still have pain. So I want to hear your perspective on how, we're looking at it globally, and we talk about how FST is, like I said, the missing link to me in my perspective. All right. So Chris, first question. If the foot is our foundation, what happens to a society that loses connection to the ground?
Discussing. So given that we don't have an entire day and you want to speak about other things, but this is the foundation of our podcast, if not the body, I will do my best to talk about it. So if you just look at our legacy or basically where we come from, and this is unarguable, and feel free to ask me for any scientific evidence if you need it. But we come from tribal people. This is undisputed. And tribal people, if you look at archaeology and anthropology, going as far back as we can, we have footprints of when people were walking barefoot. So it's indisputable that there were barefoot societies on the savannah and other places where humans first appeared. The modern human, I'll call it, after Neanderthal. Well, we coexisted with Neanderthals. The anatomically modern human, AMH, is a new term that is used for generally when humans appeared about plus or minus 200,000 years ago. And so whether or not you believe in evolution, there's evidence of both the anatomical modern human starting around that time and other ape-like creatures, let's call them, for lack of other terms, at the same time and before. And so I'm talking human, not anything else, anatomically modern human from 200,000 years ago, at least, were walking barefoot, where you had the weather that was friendly to bare feet. And in other cultures, if it's going to be, cold and not really the greatest terrain for feet, you have minimalist to more supportive wear But for instance, you'd have some tribes where they, in the cold, I'll just pick indigenous native tribal people from the frozen tundra and other inhospitable areas like the Sahara. You can't walk barefoot on a freaking hot 150-degree desert sand. And so no matter how tough your feet are. So they had support.
Yeah.
But it was still minimalist compared to the architecture of the modern shoe. And so mucklucks and these kinds of, for the Arctic, they stuffed it full of, to my minimalist knowledge of archaeology and anthropology, they did stuff it full of, natural materials that were still friendly to the foot and conformed to the foot and broken down like hay and other things, moss, whatever things that they grabbed and put in the leather-bound, hand-sewed, leather-bound boots was relatively soft and conformed to the foot. So I think my point's made that we come from a barefoot anthropology. We come from barefoot origins. We're born with bare feet. And basically the modern shoe, it depends where you want to start. I'll start in development. If a baby is not allowed to walk barefoot enough, they can be put in shoes to go outside, and once they can walk, plus or minus 18 months, that once they can walk, sure, put on little shoes, little sandals, whatever, they need it. But if they don't get the kind of stimulation in development, like anything in our body that's considered, normal to the human body, they need triplanar stimulation. The foot is a mobile adapter. If they don't exercise the mobile adaptation of the foot, which is what it is, if you want to call it designed to do, then it atrophies, then it reduces in size, and the metatarsals get crowded.
Yeah.
There's no intermetatarsal movement. There's no stimulation from rear foot to midfoot to forefoot. They just clop, plop, 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 plop. Because if you see a baby shoe, the old-fashioned baby shoes when I was a baby, they were stiff like a board and didn't allow any of this. And so you see problems. You can talk to anybody who works with children, pediatrics. In the old days, there's a lot of foot problems when they were shod. That's called put on your shoes. When they were shod from an early age and not really having enough time barefoot, they had foot problems. I mean, innumerable kinds of foot problems. And I have seen my share of foot problems, which we could talk more about. But rein me in, because I can go lots of different directions when you want me to. But yes, the damage to society, in summary, the damage to society, don't have enough barefoot development when you're born to and growing up, and sustained in your foot maintenance-wise throughout your life will lead to compensations that are ultimately negative of the entire system. And I have to say this, the foot is the first communication system in your body to our Earth, our planet Earth. And so if you have an interruption to that signal, we have to walk with shoes, but if you have an interruption, when you're walking barefoot, there's a transfer of ions, negative ions, and you can keep going on and on with electromagnetic frequencies and energy going into your body, which is why I do barefoot training every single morning. I do energetic, it's called Qigong. It's a Chinese tradition. That's a sense I feel when I don't do it, I don't feel as good. I'm not as optimal. And so the benchmark would be the barefoot, in my opinion, exposure, at least, just like any exercise, there's a minimum of which you'll benefit and be closer to an optimal state. And the further you are from that, I feel the less optimal you will be in the entire body.
So when did you start Qigong? How did this all happen? Because I'm sure you're like myself who never thought about this. Maybe my parents didn't teach me about this, or society, but when was it in your life that you found this type of thinking and I guess a profound effect of it's all right.
So you can call Qigong, but
everything that you're talking about, a
lot of
Qigong and energy, when did that all happen?
Okay. Saying you're wrong. You can call it Qigong, but that's unfamiliar to me. My teachers call it Qigong. The Chinese that I call Qigong, and maybe people you've been with or you've heard people call Qigong, but that's whatever. It could be different parts of the country. I don't know. So anyway, I'll speak of it as Qigong, CHI, but the other spelling is QIGONG.
Mm-hmm.
They're both pronounced Qigong. So my exposure to Qigong, well, it started with watching Bruce Lee films when I was a teenager. I'm a lot older than you. When they first came out, and it started out with, you know, with that. And then when I got older, I went to Chinatown in New York City to check out Kung Fu schools of Kung Fu, and they were training barefoot. Now they do have there's these canvas, I would call them slippers, slipper-like shoes that they wear in Qigong sometimes and in Tai Chi and in some martial arts, but it's also barefoot. A lot of it's barefoot. Okay, but it's minimalist. They have a minimalist type of, I don't even like to call it a shoe. It's like a slipper that you can, because you need to feel the ground and be informed of your ground surface and move from the ground. So it has to be very minimal. And I would say it started there. It started from the movies, watching Bruce Lee. It led to me going to Chinatown to see, and I actually got to see, schools in practice and fighters in practice. And then it led to my training in different martial arts, which is all barefoot. I did all barefoot training in martial arts. And then I landed in dance. I was in gymnastics, where we did a lot of barefoot stuff, but you have to wear these little canvas or leather type of slipper type of shoes, which is also what you wear in contemporary ballet, which is my training in classical ballet. But it's minimalist. It's real minimalist kind of foot support. It's more for aesthetics. Modern dance is barefoot. Classical dance is classical, right? It's like dressed up.
Yeah.
I'm from Brooklyn.
Sure.
I'm a native
Okay.
Brooklyn, New York guy.
And you grew up in New York,
if you start
New York City.
talking Brooklynese, I'm going to hit you back, them D's and does, talking like
that. Okay. Oh, man. That's funny because, so my history of, I grew up in Hawaii and in Japan, so I grew up a lot on barefoot too. Just being out in the ocean, being outside. But I still had foot pain. I still had injuries that led me down to this path where I began to find about barefoot shoes and minimalist shoes. 2 years when I kind of conversing beforehand, but the same time that I found Stretch2Go 2 years ago, and I think that's something that I wasn't really talked about. It wasn't talked about growing up, like I said, about footwear. So my next question for you is,
it does,
do you believe most modern humans
it does
have
refer back to what I started out this conversation with. If you have a lack of development, you don't have the proprioception, you have less developed. It's not optimal. Of course you have it. Of course, and your muscles work, your body works, you have structure, you have form. You have a certain amount, but it all depends on your development. And if you didn't get exposed to these things at a very young age, you're lacking. Not that you can't train it back or some of it back, but you're lacking. So yes, I think I find that often, very, very often, that people are still, you have to teach them, what would you call it, elementary, basic ways to stand even and to move, because they don't even have that. And so I'm trained as a physical therapist. I worked in pediatrics, actually. In my training, I had a clinical affiliation. That's part of our training while in school, in a pediatric ward. And I got to work with kids who had they were born with developmental issues. So I learned a lot. I had to know about every stage of development of a human being. I had that as a course in physical therapy school, and I had to apply it when I did rehabilitation with these kids. And so you could see with pathology, you could see the difference between, so-called normal gait and, abnormal gait or gait dysfunction. But that's an extreme. You have, let's say, so-called normal and pathologies of all kind. And in between, though, these people in between don't have pathology, but they have dysfunction. And in that dysfunctional phase, you'll have minimal to maximal dysfunction. And whether it's minimal or maximal dysfunction in your feet, you will compensate in zigzag fashion up your body, upstream, all the way to your cranium, right? Do you hear that? I'll just hang. That was a ring.
Yes, I did.
Does that make
No, you're
Does
good.
that make sense?
So yes, it does. It does. So the connection between, let's say, tight feet or like the modern shoes that we have today, do you think it has to do a lot with, let's say like bunions or like Taylor's bunion or like neuroma? Those are people aren't
They're not
born with them
there.
normally,
I mean, there may
correct?
be rare
I mean,
cases because
it
of a certain
developed through
reason. If
improper footwear, right?
the fetus into the developing baby inside the uterus, in utero, there may be other issues from the mother's pelvis, for instance. She may have scoliosis. She may have things in the baby's positioned a certain way. That can explain why some kids are born with scoliosis and other things, is because the mother had an imbalance in the uterus in her structure. So the baby will form accordingly. But that's rare. I would say that's more rare. No, people are not born with bunions. It's acquired.
Got it. Yeah. Because like obviously like Chinese foot binding, like isn't that like the fascia, like how it molds? Like to me, when I'm learning about like like I said, barefoot shoes, like I find like the fascia, I guess it molded because like the bones,
So
muscles, like obviously the fascia like molds, right? And so if you're wearing like narrow pointed shoes, I think that's where,
I'll give you an
all
example.
that pressure goes
What you
into
just showed me
that
with your hands, a
forefoot,
narrowed
right?
forefoot,
But I guess in your
narrowed
perspective,
shoe.
yeah, please.
In the 1950s, if you look at the old movies and if you looked at a lady dressed up, she would wear a shoe like that. All of those ladies developed bunions. I almost feel like that. I don't mean to say, I almost feel like, podiatry was created around that, but which is not true. I'm joking. But the podiatrists would do bunionectomies, the podiatrists who do surgery. There are podiatrists who don't do surgery. They would do bunionectomies and try to straighten that toe. But you know what? If you put the shoe back in, you'll get a bunion again. So the cause is, this is it. A lot of our problems come from fitting, I'll call it a circle in a square, a round peg in a square hole. That to me, it explains so many things. Our human body is soft technology, actually, because it's an intelligent system. AI was created based on the human intelligence. So we are soft technology. And basically, when you try to fit a soft, adaptable foot inside a box, which is the shoe, or you create a shoe that is not shaped like the human foot, you're forcing the foot to fit that. So, of course, it will. The body can adapt to so much. That's called Wolff's laws for the bone, Davis's laws for connective tissue. The forces exert upon it, the body will respond to the forces. It will build more bone where there's excessive compression and force, which can turn into spurs, like a heel spur. You want to talk about feet, plantar fasciitis? Heel spur is created from Wolff's law and Davis's law, which is the connective tissue that inflames around it. It's all reacting to an abnormal force that shouldn't be there. And so if you remove the force, the spur can go away, depending on how big it is. It could take a long time or a shorter time. So yes, the body adapts. It's trying to adapt. If you force it, it will adapt. Just like if you keep smoking tobacco, the lung you'll start coughing, then you stop coughing because the body's like, okay, you insist on coughing, I will adapt. But hello, cancer, 20 years, 30 years from now, kind of thing. So same thing with the foot. There's payback time. Your body will adapt, but then it's like it can't adapt anymore and it starts breaking down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's unfortunate because you see cultures across, I guess, various different countries where they either have improper. I mean, their foot is so messed up because of the footwear. I think one time I was looking into like the history of footwear and how
Yes.
I guess the pointy shoes were a sign of a symbol of a status that you were wealthy, and so like even in today's modern shoes, it's like footwear is just fashion. It's not. They don't use it as a functional. I mean, it's a tool, right? And I guess the reason why I kind of got into this whole movement and fascia, because it made sense to me that, hello, my foot is like I said, I had like shin splints, plantar fasciitis from playing sports, but I was never taught that the foot could be strengthen, mobilize. I could actually work on these muscles that existed, but like athletic trainers back home or even in college, they didn't really
Yeah,
talk
I'll give
about
an
this
example. I
work.
had a wide
And I think
receiver
that's probably an
who played
overlooked
at the time
aspect
for the
of
Arizona
today's
Cardinal
society.
football team,
So,
NFL, and he's a wide receiver. So they jump to catch balls. They run, obviously. They do
mm-hmm,
all these things. I worked on his feet. He's already at a high level, but if you give him 0.1% to 1% more, it's a big deal. And he was like, man, no one looked at my feet. No one paid attention to my feet. I say, you guys, relatively speaking, it's a tight shoe, athletic shoe, but you guys spat, which means you tape. You tape the hell out of your ankles and it blocks your ankle. It blocks the ankle.
mm-hmm,
Now you're forcing the foot and the knee above and below to work with the extra forces because the ankle is supposed to absorb. You're supposed to have distribution of forces, right? A follow through. It's called mechanotransduction if you want to talk science, but there's a
mm-hmm,
transfer of force because fascia is a tensional network. And so when you block a joint like the ankle because you don't want the athlete to sprain the ankle and you restrict motion, that's my theory is that's why there's so many knee injuries in football. It's not from the impact, it's from you're blocking an essential joint that needs to share the load across an entire kinetic chain. The foot stresses out, the knee stresses out, and more above. So,
yeah.
well, even in
Why don't
physical
athletic
therapy, I can
trainers
speak
don't
only
why
from
why don't they
that.
talk about
Basically,
this? Why don't they
feet
educate
are a
their
special.
athletes?
It's considered a
Mm-hmm,
specialty in physical
mm-hmm,
therapy school programs. You only have so much time. We basically are responsible for the entire body. We have to learn about all
mm-hmm,
the systems. So we learn enough to spit it out on exam, but not
yeah,
enough to have practical training and education. Certainly not in the foot.
mm-hmm,
And so the foot is its own study. And that's why I specialized in it because I ended up working at a place called Westside Dance Physical Therapy in New York City that specializes in professional, elite, the best in the world dancers from Broadway to Lincoln Center with the ballet dancers and you name it. And so we had to understand the foot barefoot and put in point shoes. The girls in ballet wear these point
yeah,
shoes. And you want to talk bunions? They had massive bunions. Yeah, they had massive bunions. The shoe is amazing.
please.
It's technology wise, engineering wise. My God, for them to balance on the tip of their toe like that in a toe box, it's incredible. It's beautiful, but they suffered from the consequences. Yeah, you can't do that. Get away with problems.
So does
These days longer than
what's
the
the
old days,
normal
but you were pretty
lifespan
much
of a
shot by
ballet dancer
35.
or
You were
typically?
not doing the same roles you did when you were 20. I mean, that's normal anyway by virtue of age. But I worked on a very famous
Mm-hmm,
dancer named Merrill Ashley. You can look her up on Wikipedia, whatever. When I saw her, I was a physical therapist for the New York City Ballet. We had a whole crew doing that, and I was responsible for the entire company. Half the company went to Brazil, where I treated them. I was the medical person responsible, and I had a massage therapist assistant. And Merrill Ashley told me this is my last tour. I give one goodbye performance, and I'm done because I need two hip replacements. She was 45 years old. I mean, that's abnormal to have hip replacements at 45. I mean, that's usually if you have problems like hip dysplasia, you have congenital issues. That's not normal in the regular person to have hip replacement at 40. You accelerate the degeneration of your body in sports, and certainly at the time in classical ballet. Her hips were fused in external rotation. And what is your foot going to do when your hips are fused in external rotation? It's going to compensate like crazy. And then she's on the point shoes, which bunionize her big toe on both sides. And she walks like a duck. I mean, what does that do to your back? I mean, the whole system is literally a mess. And they
yeah,
do this. They sacrifice their bodies because she was doing it since 4 years
mm-hmm,
old. So her body developed with these forces that really aren't normal. Right? We're meant to walk, a little turned out, a little externally rotated, but walking relatively parallel. She spent all day, every day for decades doing work like this with her feet turned out and doing all this stuff. It's beautiful. It's amazing. And a lot of those girls, I used to tell them, why are you walking in the street like that? Yeah, we used to call them bun heads because they all have buns. Right? It's like a bun head on the street. This is for the stage. This is for training. And I always try to get him to walk parallel again. And so when I worked at Westside Dance Physical Therapy, we invented, my boss, Marika Molnar, and Ken Endelman from Balanced Body Pilates. They literally designed and developed the rotating Pilates discs that everyone sees today, came from my place. That was like a laboratory for anything foot, for anything dance. We designed it, and Balanced Body at the time was probably one of the only companies that started in Pilates with developing this kind of equipment. And I was there. I got to use the prototypes on people. I got to try it out on my body, and that was so big to get their foot in neutral, to lift their arch, get it in neutral, and do internal rotation, which is a no-no in ballet. They're like, no, you don't ever do that. You're always like this. We would have to do relieving the body, the fascia, developed along the external rotation, pulled up in the body kind of feeling. We had to restore internal rotation back, which in a neutral foot, because when they turn out, you tend to pronate. No matter how good your turnout is, most people pronate too much. And so that's why, if you look at my hand, this is the big toe. It's going to deviate because when you pronate, the arch drops, the navicular drops, the metatarsal to the big toe drops, and it starts to turn away. That's how a bunion develops in ballet, or from shoe. Wear a shoe that squeezes everything, and they're supposed to tilt their foot in the bunion direction to create a bunion. Literally, their technique is to create a bunion. And so, again, it's fitting a soft technology, an intelligent, soft, adaptable system. When you put it in something rigid, it will adapt, but don't think it's just adapting there. We, as fascia workers of any kind, fascia trainers, have to look way upstream to see where the trickle up effect had. Once you see anything on the foot, you got to look for other things above. You just work on the foot, it's not just going to automatically take care of everything. Right? Depending on how many years it's been sitting there, you're going to have to work on other things too. So that's the big takeaway, I think, for people unfamiliar, that your listeners who don't work with the fascial system. You can be fastened with feet, but be fastened with fascia.
Yeah, that's true. And I think that's why it makes sense to me that when I was presenting this past week in Chicago, that I showed to the audience like how the foot, barefoot shoes unlocks the foot, but there's still going up the kinetic chain from, knees, hip, back. I mean, to the, like you're saying, that superficial back line that goes all to the top of the eyebrows. And I've found, I guess, a lot of people who were there, because I had a table there, actually. Great. I was stretching a lot of the founders of the barefoot shoes. And there's a lot of people talking about, what is that? I need that. And I asked them, well, I thought you were wearing barefoot shoes. Doesn't that help you? They're like, no, I still have pain. And I think, some people think it might be a quick fix because they're like, all right, my foot's fine. Now everything's going to go. But I was like, no, it's not. So I'd love to hear from your perspective, because you're the creator, you and Ann are the creator of Stretch2Win, FST, Fascia Stretch Therapy, for 30 years now. You have seen the growth of, I guess, research that you guys have done. And the word that comes to mind is the biotensegrity. I think that's something I've been hearing more and more. And I'd love to hear like how biotensegrity works for like a common person. Like, what is it? And how does that affect, especially, let's say,
on one level, biotensegrity, I have to say, is complex.
The chain.
And it's a model. If you see, in fact, I'll grab a model here.
Okay.
I'll be right back. I'll grab a simple model like this. And so basically, if we talk about just simple concepts and not get into the science of biotensegrity, because there's enough work behind it. And I have to give a shout out to the Biotensegrity Tea Party. Dr. Stephen Levin, MD, is the founder of Biotensegrity. He coined the term. And of course, the word tensegrity existed beforehand from Buckminster Fuller, who was a genius architect. And that started around the 50s with Kenneth Snelson, who's a sculptor. Those two together, people argue who came up with the word first. I won't get into that. But Kenneth Snelson made the first sculptures of tensegrity. Okay. It's a self-supportive structure that when the wind blows, it will blow and move wind. There was the needle was the first famous tensegrity structure in Washington, D.C. I forgot how tall. It's massive. I've never seen it in person. It's like, how does this stand up and withstand the weather? Because you have compression and tension elements in balance. And some people like to say the bones are compression elements and the connective tissue fascia is the tension elements. That's not actually perfectly accurate, but I'll go with that because people talk about that. You got some noise in your end.
Yeah, hold on. Sorry, I have my two kids.
So getting back to biotensegrity.
So biotensegrity, yes.
The structure, any structure that is a biotensegrity structure is self-supporting. If you compress it, it will widen. I'll make it really simple. If I go down and in, the forces are distributed in other directions. If I pull it apart, it pulls in. So there's an expansion contraction components that are in balance, basically. And so when our body is not in balance and you have more tension or more compression, we know that if you have more compression in joints, it wears out the joint. If you have more tension in the myofascia, we see patterns, people have more pain on a locked, long, eccentrically loaded tissue in tension. That's where the pain is, right? Not so much when you first have it under compression, when it's more, it hasn't been there that long. The long this imbalance has been in your body, you'll have pain in both locations. You'll have pain in the knee or joint where you wore away the cartilage, right? And you start having bone on bone, you're going to have pain, coupled with the excessive tension on one side. Let's just say because you are in imbalance, your biotensegrity, which is your body configuring itself. We are shape changers. So in biotensegrity, we talk about constantly changing our shape. When we sit down, we compress things when we stand up, and when we stretch versus when we fan or fold our body. That's the foot, by the way. The arch is a folding in supination where it comes in and is smaller. That's called making a short foot, dome your foot. That's folding. And a fan is when the arch drops down and you pronate. Those are both normal actions. That's a perfect example of a biotensegrity imbalance is your foot. It fans and folds. It has that capacity. But it always comes back to its shape and balance. There's a balance of forces of compression and tension in your body. Your arch wouldn't hold up unless the tension was part of that, because with body weight on top of that, it would collapse, right? You'll see that with people who are excessively overweight, let's say severely obese or just obese, their knees will start to genu valgus, they'll cave in, and the arches down, right? Because they don't have this, they lost their biotensegrity, they lost the balance between tension and compression, and now it's all compression. And in other areas you will have tension, but it is not a balanced system. It's a major imbalance. And so for your listeners, I highly suggest checking out the Biotensegrity Tea Party, it's called, on YouTube. They have free lectures. They're amazing. There's such a library. I would go to the introduction. They have titles that explain biotensegrity. They are the source. It's Stephen Levin, MD, who's the founder, creator, and it's Susan Lowell is the main person who has worked with Stephen for decades on writing about it, explaining it, and educating the public about it. They are I would say, the official source of that. But hopefully, this model, which is actually this is obviously not the model of a cell or a body. It's the model of forces, what forces do in the body. You have to imagine these as vectors of force. These are forces in balance. It's a living system. There's a natural flexibility to it. It's not rigid, right? It's not completely soft. It's a balance of rigid bone and tensile structures, which is why your body does not like to be stretched beyond a certain point. It'll pull back in. And if I may talk about it, It's the tension network of the body. I said this before, and there's a book called, one of the first highly scientific book was written by Robert Schleip, the top scientist, along with all other whole crew of top scientists. And I am blessed to have been in the book with Tom Myers. We wrote a book on stretching, and the book is called Fascia, the Human Tensional Network. I mean, they literally put that in the title. That must be major. And so I have been talking to everyone about fascia in my classes, that in fascia stretch therapy, we don't just stretch. We don't lengthen what should not be lengthened. We don't stretch hypermobile people where it's already hypermobile and unstable. We don't do that. That would be ridiculous. You're going to hurt people. And people who are doing traditional stretching are hurting people, because not everybody, but there's a lot of injuries occurring now because they don't know, really, they don't assess what should be stretched, who should be stretched. We can talk about that a little bit later. But my point is, tension network, I like to speak about, if I reduce it to its simplicity, let's just really make it simple, which is always a great place to start with your clients, right? They get all bleary-eyed and glaze over. It's like, you're talking science, right? And other people love it. So let's start simple. You'll always make it complex. So if you start it simple, if you have a body in balance, the tension is in balance. When you stand, let's just all of us imagine standing. You should feel nothing. You should body. If you notice something, and something could be a little sore, achy, little tension, if you pay attention, because you can ignore everything and feel nothing. Like a lot of special, I'll pick an extreme example, special forces, warrior, soldier. They're taught not to feel anything because you have to go without sleep and go on your mission and don't complain, right? And in dance, same thing. You do not talk about pain. You live with pain and you ignore it. So people like that, they're another category. You got to work with them. They will say nothing hurts when it actually does, but they won't tell you, or your brain has learned to ignore it. But most of us, if you pay attention, and I always say this to clients, I say, it doesn't have to be pain, but does your face hurt right now? They'll say no. Well, you know what? The whole body should feel like your face, which means nothing. You shouldn't feel it. If you don't feel your face, you shouldn't feel anything else. You pay attention. Yeah, your feet are on the ground. Okay, you feel the pressure of the floor, but it does. That's it. I'll give you that. What else do you feel? Now they start talking about stuff. Well, my left low back, it's tight here. My shoulder, my neck, my this, my that. Their body already is exhibiting imbalance in the tensional network. Could it be diabetes? Could it be a disease? Yes. But let's just talk structure. So if I take my hands, Ian, and I go like this, and I look at their body, okay, imagine this. I am locked short in my front net, my front line, which means I'm locked long in the back, okay? So this is short and tight. This is long and under strain, constant strain. And so they say, yeah, it kind of bothers me in my neck and upper traps and maybe in my low back, right? And I take my hands, and this is what I do on a new client, and I won't force anything with my hands. I input as little as possible. So it's their brain saying, oh, I like what he's doing. So I give them a suggestion. It's like I put my hand on the chest down here on the sternum. I start low down here. I don't pull their head back for a forward head. If they have a forward head, forward shoulders, I don't start with the head and shoulders. I start lower because it's fascial based. There's a foundation lower down. I'll lift very gently. I suggest to the tissue, how do you like going in this direction? Up, while I go down in the back. Once a lot of people will respond, they start standing up tall. And I stop. When they stop, I don't force anything. And I say, better, worse, or the same than before I did this? Better, worse, or the same? That's always my question. My pain's gone. My headache's gone. I don't have that knot that I feel. I don't notice what I noticed before when you asked me, what do I notice? I'm like, okay, now I have a strategy. I already know their fascias. I confirmed with a test, an assessment. It's pulled down in the front, it's pulled up in the back. They need to be put back into balance. We can do that with fascia stretch therapy. You can do it with Rolfing or structural integration, which I'm trained in too, and other wonderful works, right? We're not the only ones to bring them back into balance. You just have to know how to assess first before you just go in there and stretch stuff.
Yeah, That is awesome. And that's what makes FST so unique and different, because we reassess and reassess afterwards, right? All the time. I think that's what really brought me when I first got into the table at level 1 is like my hips has always been tight. And I remember clearly I went to the Canada location actually with Kevin Darby guys. So just the whole week, just the reassessing, assessing, just really helped me fine tune and be aware. And I think that's another thing that we lack is the awareness of our body. We have lost that, like you were saying about how people are the pain. People are always in pain.
Let me give you something, an image. So let's go back to the beginning of this conversation where we talked about
don't feel that anymore.
Ancestors that were tribal, walking barefoot to minimalist shoe wear, right? They, unless you're chief,
sure,
or king or queen, unless you come from royalty, which most of us don't, and they were sitting on their butt ordering people around to work for them. Us, our ancestors, worked from sunup to sundown, were on their feet moving. To think that 3 hours in a gym, 3 days a week for 1 hour, is the same as working from sunup to sundown every day, pretty much, maybe Sunday off, I don't know, is ridiculous. Our bodies were made to do that. We can do that. They did do that. We would die as a species if we couldn't do that. We excelled at that. And so we're so strong that we can, adapt to just about anything. And so our ancestors did that. And if you do it to excess, of course, you're going to be in pain. But if you follow fundamentals of rest and recovery and good food, and a lot of them did that, some of them didn't, they were slaves. But, if you just take the modern, if you take not the modern farmer, I'll take the homestead person or the people who go to the land now. There's a lot of people going back to the land. It's a superior lifestyle. They're outdoors. They're breathing fresh air, constantly moving. They don't complain about work. Their body's working. They feel better. They don't have to belong to a gym because they're getting things done that actually do things that, make their homestead better, their land better, their garden better, et cetera, et cetera. That's their exercise. And it's not exercise. That's our living. That's how humans used to live. That wasn't called exercise. That's a new word. We have to, force ourselves to move now because our bodies have changed state based on a chair. Our body, you see people, they look like they've been sitting in a chair. When they stand up and they walk and they look like they're still sitting in a chair. They have a C curve. It's like your body has changed shape. And so we have to force them to move. And a lot of people are just couch potatoes. They just can't or won't. And all of us have to motivate ourselves to move more or less. And so that's the thing I wanted to say is if you don't move, that's part of what we're talking about is you have the barefoot, but don't forget these people were moving on the go, moving all day, right? That's missing from...
and that's, you just reminded me of how many, there's a thing I like to talk about how sitting is the new smoking. And we sit too much, sitting when we eat, sitting in the car, sitting at a desk. There's a lot of sitting that, like you're saying, humans have not done before because of a chair, right? And I see that's where, desk workers, there's just so much issues with the chair. And I think the lack of mobility that does not happen because we're sitting too much. And even in school, goodness, I don't know how many hours I've been sitting at a desk. I think that affected my posture too, and so that's something that as a society we have to fix is like how there are ways, whether sitting on the ground or sitting, on a stool, something that helps to move the pelvis, right? Or just to be moving. Because
just so you know, I've been around, like I said, a little longer than you. Then
from low back pain, hips.
These kinds of alternate sitting has been developed for 30 years. This is not new. People used to sit on balls until they started falling off the balls. People used to sit on balls as a quick fix, right? A big ball. Other people develop these special chairs, and they're still around, but some of them complain of their knees because it's a zigzag chair that you sit on. It's kind of like a modified Japanese sit position. So you're part Japanese, and you know the traditional Japanese sitting, or in martial arts they do that a lot, where you sit before you sensei. So they have a modified chair, but some people didn't like the pressure on their shins. Right? That was a certain design. That's old. That's been around for forever. There's been vibrating chairs, there's been tilted chairs, there's been people working on treadmills, standing workstations. That's been around for a long time. So we don't have an excuse. We have all these alternate ways to not sit in a chair per se, and yet it's still around. So personally, if you move well and you do an extensive full body workout of some kind that's healthy and balanced, and you get the mobility and the strength sufficient, I can sit for a long time. I feel like it's, I don't gain weight at all. Of course, I eat well, but, and sleep well. But I think we have the upside of all this is we actually have the knowledge of applying a balanced way of living every single day where we can still sit, long periods of time. I'm a writer. I do research. I sit long periods of time, but I don't like to sit. Well, if I sit too long without exercise, my body gets really mad. It gets really cranky. I don't wait because that's too late. You just waited too late as soon as your body says that. So I do things to avoid that feeling. And now I have a nice balance of, full body exercise. I vary it up every single day. With sitting, man, I feel like I hit a sweet spot. And I just encourage your listeners, if you're not there yet, don't get discouraged. You can get there. I got there. I just try to, muscle through sitting. Do not muscle through sitting. It's the opposite of your muscles, what they want.
So I guess, and this is another thing too, because I'm only level 2, but level 4, my understanding is that that's where, I guess, if people were to take this course through the Stretch2Go Institute, there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. But level 4, you guys do go into a little bit about the foot. And I'm just curious. Yeah, I'm curious to see why, not why, but like, I guess why on level 4 you only talk about the foot, but not like the whole 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, is it just because of the way that you guys have structured it in the past 30 years?
We have so much that we pack in 5 days. We've gone through we've gone through an evolutionary change in our training style where we blew your brains apart 30, 20 years ago. We gave you so much. People loved it, but we really, I used to do PowerPoints and I gave you so much and it was too much. It was too much. And so, it's like any course that you get so much thrown at you. It's amazing. You're fascinated. And at the end, it's like, okay, in our course, it was different. People always had takeaways and they could use it right away, always. Except back then, I think we still overwhelmed them. And some things were just confusing because they never really got it. Now we make sure you have, Canadian team is amazing. American team's amazing. We have it down very well where less is more. And so that's why we never put in the foot, because the foot's complex. And I've been rethinking things about at least putting it in your community members area, basic stuff that you should know at level 1 and 2, then 3, then 4, and build towards 4 by seeding, planting the seeds for you guys in these other levels. And at the least start doing it on our webinar series basis where we cover things like that. We covered hypermobility and for the whole town hall. We educate everybody about hypermobility. I'm working on a guide. I'm done with that just about for you guys to use in your clinic. And so, thank you for reminding me. I'd like to do something about the foot that's more basic, and then we go from there. But because
I know I know there are things that we do like the fire starter.
True.
There are some toes and like foot simple things, that we did do in level 1 and 2. So, but it's like it's just a teaser for me because, like I said, I'm just so enamored of the fact that this, like I said, this has been a profound effect where if a lot of these FST practitioners or therapists are going through these courses, I would love for them to also know that if they were to change a footwear or they teach their clients, they can also,
Yeah, I think
it could
maybe it's
probably
time
make a
for me to
profound
have a foot
effect
guide
as well on their
for you
fascial
guys,
system.
for
I
everybody.
don't know.
You
I
know,
mean,
so let's talk about that offline.
yeah. Okay. Cool. Sure. um, thank you. A couple other questions I have. What's the next evolution of fascia stretch therapy looking like in the next 10 years? I know you're at this, you're at the peak of your life with you and Ann. You guys have been doing it for 30 years. Like I said, you guys have created level 4, expanded, but what is it? What does it look like for you? I mean, maybe you guys haven't talked about it, but maybe you are, but I like to know because the, this whole trend of assisted stretch therapy that you guys have probably been seeing for the years, the growth and immersion of all the different places that are popping up, that there's a need for it. But I want to hear in your perspective of where does FST stand for? Because healthcare is not the way, it's not healing the body, the modern healthcare today. And so I'm curious to see because there are, I believe Mayo Clinic
Mayo.
Is that right? Mayo Clinic about FST. Yeah. Um, but I want to hear, like, in your perspective, what it looks like for FST
So what you
in the
said,
next 10
thanks for
years,
asking that
because
question. It's
I
very
think there'll be a
important to
profound
me and
effect
to
for,
us.
like I said,
So
overall,
in a
just Gen
nutshell,
Pop.
most people would not disagree with the statement that, at least in the United States, I'll speak from where I live, the United States healthcare system is broken,
So,
and it's not healthcare, it's crisis care. So they're really good at, if I severed my hand in an horrible accident, sorry, Ian, I wouldn't come to you for FST. I'd go to the ER and ask them to please reattach because that's what they're good at. But if I went to an ER because I had a back spasm, medication, a shot, and good luck. They don't know anything about hypermobility. They don't know anything about all these other things. They look if I have a disc
yeah.
blown or something like that. But that's not even most problems. It's not from a disc, and they think it is. So it's messed up with chronic. They're not good with chronic problems. So a lot of people are spending billions of dollars here out of pocket, not covered by insurance, to get answers because they are getting help from other therapies that are not FDA approved and they're not part of the medical system. Doctors know nothing about most of these things and they can't speak on it. So for them, it doesn't exist and they cannot offer their patients, alternatives because they're taught not to consider it at all. And you can look it up. 1909 Flexner Report is when the American Medical Association shut down osteopathic schools, naturopathic schools, herbology schools, all the good schools that we now have were shut down so that only medicine, pharmaceuticals, and surgery were sanctioned by this country, by the political system then. They said, that's the only medicine we do. Only the MD is allowed. Even osteopathic physicians were not allowed. No, in America is like an MD. In Canada, they're not. They're totally. But in America, same.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are. Well, that came from it's
They're actual
America,
fascia workers,
osteopathy.
right?
But they closed all the osteopathic original schools too. So that's our legacy. That's where it comes from. It comes from pharmaceuticals and a pharmaceutically driven, surgically driven, and it's run by financial companies that make decisions on who gets what in insurance, not by doctors who know best. So the whole system is, sorry, it's rigged for for companies to make money. It's not designed optimally for your optimal health. So people who are in the know and who can afford it go outside. And so it's important to me, based on that foundation that's happening in this country, and a lot of countries copy us. It's called Western medicine. Even China went from acupuncture and traditional Chinese medical hospitals. They have Western medicine. So it's built on the same thing. They copied us because we look so successful with it. But it's misleading, right? So yeah, they help a lot of people with certain things. Okay. I'm not saying it's trash.
Yeah.
It's really good at things and it really sucks at other things. It's not complete. We need both, actually. We need allopathic, but we also need functional, integrative, complementary. right? All that. And so with that being the
Mm-hmm.
case of today's world, it's important to me in fascia stretch therapy to be linked with a network of other practitioners because we don't have all the answers. And I always say to my graduates, stay within your scope, whatever you're trained, but get a network of trusted professionals that do other things to treat the whole person. So in FST, I am in the process of designing a mastery program where you guys will do deep dives into how joints move, the capsules, and just a joint. How does each joint move? So you get excellent at that. And you're in the process, you're learning anatomy in a different way. And how does that interact with the rest of the system? And how do you prioritize what to assess in the whole system? And my assessment really quick is posture, myofascia, joint, and nervous system. That's the flow in the upper levels. I start teaching this flow of assessment. I want you guys to be the mastery of the fascial system, the connective tissue system on all levels, and how to assess and not waste time going down rabbit holes, but you have good, relatively quick screens that point you in a flow diagram. I'm going to go this way, but I can assess, treat, reassess to confirm whether you're on the right path or I got to change directions right now within one session and not waste time. That's my goal. My goal is to get that to you. And so now I'm using AI to help design this path for you, which is really going to accelerate the process. I'm super excited about that. I'm going to AI bootcamp. I'm halfway through, at least the first 6 weeks. Then I'm going to do their 3-month extension. And I've learned so much. I'm creating guides already for you guys. I just haven't released them yet. I'm so excited. And I really feel this is going to accelerate us achieving a mastery together. And I want to build the network better. We have a FST family, but we need to be able to talk to who does what and what can we offer, what can the headquarters, Ann and Chris, offer us to make sure we're all connected in this network, just like the connective tissue of the body. It's the connective tissue of Stretch2Go Institute. And that we get informed, as much or as little as we want to stay top of mind with what's going on in the world and how we are developing solutions that, and believe me, I'm going to be coming up with screens that you can do more and more and more and be disseminating this. I'm just so excited about putting that together with visuals, protocols, knowing that everyone's an individual. Here's an outline of a protocol, but everybody's a person, what to think about patterns. Pattern recognition is a big thing in AI, in science, and in nature, is recognizing patterns that occur over and over. That's reliable. You don't need evidence-based research because you'll never get it. It'll be decades before you get all the research, right? So you got to have evidence, but you also got to work with when you don't have evidence, recognizing what patterns. And the longer you do FST, the more you start recognizing patterns, what will most likely work in these scenarios, and where you got to pivot and do something a little different. That's where we say, make it your own. You got to be creative with this work. And at that level of mastery, you guys will be super creative. You have made it your ultimate own thing within the context of where it's coming from us. And we're not ready to retire, dude. We are full, we are full octane going forth with this, with vigor, with gusto, with excitement, and actually with more and more support. We're having more and more support from lots of different other joint venture partners, I'll call them for now, that have been in this world for, like us, 20, 30 years or more. And I'm working with my mentors who've been at 40, 50 years. They're still going. They're exciting. This is an exciting time that we're all getting together. And I'm bringing it to you. We are bringing our exposure to these wonderful other mentors and people and putting under the umbrella of a mastery where you have access to even more. But you can imagine at level 1, that would be overwhelming. So we give you something that works at level 1. And a lot of you guys get so busy, you can't even make it back to level 2. And that, we always say, you come back when you're ready. But honestly, you'll see man, I need more tools in my bag. It's like I'm helping a lot of people, but now they're bringing people that are more complicated or whatever. They find me and say, I got to know more. So you come back for level 2, and when it's time for 3 and for 4. And that mastery, I think, is a capstone where this is my final note on this, Ian. Well, I know I always have a lot to say, but I'll say final for now. Capstone, right, at mastery. I see you guys at that level fitting in with physicians who know about us and will refer to you based on your scope, and others in sports at the top of the professional leagues understanding who we are, that we are so different than the stretch franchises. We don't badmouth any of those franchises, but they just do traditional stretching. They don't recognize the body as a system. It's muscle by muscle. It's very limited in its benefits. And if you're lucky, you get a good person. They have a good heart. They help you. You get other people, you're getting hurt. We see both. A lot of people get injured in those places. And I'm not going to name names. I'm just going to say a fact. We have people who used to be managers of stretch franchises training with us now. They left. They quit. They were training with us. What does that tell you? Right? And some of their practitioners. So they know we're different. The world doesn't know we're different. They think stretching is stretching. They think all we do is stretching. We do compression too, for God's sakes. We shorten too. We don't just lengthen tissue. We balance the body. Biotensegrity. We do compression, tension, balance so that you can function. And so that's where we're going with this is like, I see you guys as being a choice for the public to see you under one roof for just about everything. And ultimately, you will have maybe things like pulse electromagnetic field, those machines that I am now getting on my body. I really believe in that. Radio frequency, infrared, these different things are modalities that actually support what we do, but we have the hands-on. They can't replace this with AI. They can't. And humans need human touch.
Correct.
There are some humans that don't like human touch. I won't talk about those humans, and they're beautiful human beings, but they have problems with being touched, and that's understandable. Most of us need to be touched. And so during 9/11, people were dying to be touched. I mean, I should say dying. Around 9/11, people so upset by our country being attacked for the first time on our soil that they needed to be touched and soothed and have a compassion feeling. Same thing during COVID. A lot of our people were busy during COVID. Once everything was clear about, what are you supposed to do? They went and sought you guys out, and that you guys were busy during COVID because people needed human contact. Everything was so isolated, right? And so we need fundamental to who we are. Man, we're just like supplying that. There's a huge demand and the supply is low. So we're growing, and we want you guys to, whoever wants to come with us and progress to the highest level and be up there with other practitioners, that the world needs hope, and they need well-trained people with big, huge hearts and compassionate that truly understand the human body. They need this. This is so desperate right now. I can't tell you, based on what we've been exposed to and also what everyone sees in the world, people being stressed. Okay, I gotta tell you this. Okay, that's the big picture. Let me give you this image, everybody. So I've been listening to Greg Braden, Gregg Braden. He's a scientist. He was a space scientist. He's a geologist, but he's also a forward thinker of the human potential movement. So I was listening to one of his lectures on Gaia and DNA spooling. Look that up. Your DNA, I'll make it easy. Your DNA, right? Can't get more basic about your body, will coil in and tighten under stress. Just let that sit with you for a while. People in chronic stress, fight or flight, every day, their DNA is this way. So the body follows your DNA because it's every one of your 50 trillion cells. You got 50 trillion cells in your body, plus or minus, and your DNA is in all of that. Every single one of your DNA is pulling in like, don't hurt me, fight or flight, frozen, petrified. It's a crazy world out there. I'm stressed. This is what's happening. And so when my cat lays like this, I'm like, oh man, you're stretching your DNA. It's almost like I could see the arms of the DNA. DNA looks like that, right? It looks like that. It's like cat looking like that. It's like, you look like DNA, and you make my DNA relax. So I'm looking at my cat just stretching. I'm like, oh, that looks so cool, so nice, so relaxing. And I'm sitting on a PEMF machine this morning, and I'm like, I'm smiling. I'm like, I felt I'm like, my DNA is unraveling. My DNA is opening and stretching. And if that happens, Ian, that enough is amazing, right? And there's scientific proof for this. This is not my imagination. This is not just animation. This is true stuff. When it unspools or opens up, your DNA can express the potential of your cell, which is balance of your body. Your body knows what to do to make it better. It always wants to get better. But if you keep coiled in under stress, it can't express itself.
Yeah.
So that's why pain is a chronic cycle. It's almost like you can't break the cycle of addiction and pain and this negative and this negative and this negative. Why? Because down to your DNA, you're coiled in, you're protective, you're not open to the world, you're not open to stretching, your body can't open. And so we need to get to the DNA. I mean, you want to talk about restrictions and tightness. You can't get more restricted than your DNA. I'm telling you right now. You're laughing, I'm laughing. That's helping our DNA because we're in a positive mood. It's transformed the body to any negative. And all of us have to do some of that every day. You got to shake that shit out. As they say in Chinese medicine, in Taoism, Chinese philosophy, they call it the red dust of the world. So in the old days, in the Taoist days, they wore sandals, minimalist footwear, right? I'm wrapping all this in. Minimalist footwear in China, Taoist masters. And I've trained in this, so I know this from firsthand experience, but I know from history, which I've studied some of the Taoist history. Their feet got dirty. That's why Jesus used to wash the disciples' feet. They get dirty with sandals in the desert in the Middle East. Same thing. So that was called red dust, but it's symbolic. It's a metaphor for any shit you pick up, excuse my language, or you're stained by society from the negative. You're like, man, it's like, this is affecting me. This bad news. It's bad news every day. I'm reading the news. You got to cleanse your body, not your body, your body, mind, spirit. You got to cleanse it and go to bed clear and clean, so that doesn't go into your brain, because at night the lymphatic system is washing your brain. And if you have a dirty brain from almost negativity, you're not washing your brain. Guess what? The next day you bring it back with you. And guess what? It tightens your DNA again.
Yeah.
When I take a shower, my students love this when I share it.
Because you wake up mad.
I say, same thing, shower going over my head. This is after I wash myself. When I wash myself, I'm washing the digital. I'm doing a digital detox and just a detox around everything I gathered from the world that's negative. I'm washing it, and I say, pain down the drain, because it rhymes, and it will take my pain away, and even my psychological pain, my mental pain, my physical pain. I say pain down the drain, and I let it follow down my conception vessel. In acupuncture, the center of your body is your conception vessel. It's all of your chakras from top to bottom to root, all the negativity out of my body now. I command it, and I feel cleansed, literally and spiritually. And I go to bed and I'm like, smile, I'm good. Don't bring that shit with me to bed. Here you go.
Beautiful. That's
a lot of stuff.
End it with that. Love it. So, man, there's a lot of stuff. I could go on. I should do another podcast with you, but time is short. So my last question is that there's so much question, Chris, I have, but like this whole conversation I had is just, it really helped me to open up my eyes more about your thinking and your philosophy and like who you are, because I've never met you in person, obviously, but I just know that from what, the past 2 years of learning the Stretch to Win, even beforehand, learning about FST in general, I was trying to find something that aligned with my values and my thinking. And that really helped me when I came across you guys online, actually. So I'm just happy that I was able to get you on the podcast because it just confirmed to me that what I'm doing to helping others, it's really because what you and Anne have pretty much put together and shared with the students across the world. So I just want to thank you
Ian.
first of all
I
for
appreciate
just
you
letting me
spending time
be
with
part
me,
of this
talking about
journey
all
with you
this.
guys. So
Our
yeah,
passion,
thank you.
right? It's our passion. So, you're in the family, and we appreciate all that you do. Everything that you do in general, but specific to this podcast, you're doing a podcast, so you're spreading the word, you're educating the public, and good people find good people. So that's what we're doing.
So last but not least, I guess the final send-off question I would ask you is, if someone only had 10 minutes a day to reconnect
10 minutes
with
a
their
day,
body,
if at all
what would you have them
possible.
do? That's my send-off question.
When possible,
All right.
basically go barefoot in the grass or sand, wherever you can go barefoot with natural terrain, okay, level ground, and just make it short, 10 minutes, 3 long, deep breaths, and then just breathe regular. Try to do a natural squat where you're not holding your spine in neutral unless it's safety, like you have to do it. But if you don't have any spinal issues, see how far down you can do a natural, indigenous, native squat. And that's where you are, right? Now, for those who can't do it, find a tree, find a fence, find something that doesn't move, and just lean back in your heels, and you can go further and let it be passive, because it starts to open up your back, your hips, your ankles, right? And you come up with a big, deep inhale, and you go down again, right? Let's stick with 3s for now, because 10 minutes can be eaten up fast, right? But slow. I'm talking real slow. And when you come up, you're going to take your time pushing through the ground, feeling your proprioception. Feel all the muscles. Don't try to contract all your muscles. Feel what muscles, and exert yourself. If it's effort, push through the ground as firm as you can with a deep inhale, because you never want to stop breathing. When you reach the top, you can let go of the tree and extend your body back a little bit so it's no pain, and look up to the sky, see the beautiful clouds, the sun, whatever. It's like a sun salutation, right? And then come down on an exhale, hold the tree or fence, whatever, and then sink down nice and slow. Everything's slow and controlled, 10 minutes, right? It's a wake up, dynamic morning thing. For me, I did this. I don't need to hold on to a tree, but hold on to whatever. And I would say you start with doing that 3 times, right? And then, so there's this whole Qigong series, which I can't really teach you guys to do right now. But honestly, okay, for those who can do this, for me, I do bear walks across the grass, nice and slow, not fast. And of course, I learned bear walks at first in jiu-jitsu, when I trained in jiu-jitsu, right? But I do it nice and slow. And I feel through the upper body now connection. I feel the connection into the ground, because I'm doing closed kinetic chain into the shoulder joints, which is great for my hypermobile body. It feels very grounding with my palm into the ground with my feet now. It connects my feet and my hands, grounding, right? With all the good energy. I walk to one end and then I go backwards. I don't go forwards again. I go backwards, and I kind of look behind me to see to try to keep that straight line, because sometimes I go off to one side. Do 3 forward, 3 back a set of those, right? And do it really slow. When you do it really slow and those out of shape, you're going to be breathing, huffing and puffing, right? Those in shape can do more reps, just add more reps. And then you can start pushing through the ground just a little bit faster, because when your body wakes up and you get the creaks of the morning out, you can squat better. A lot of you guys let go of the tree, let go of the fence, and now you're going to feel your hips open up. And I'm flexible and I'm strong, but man, when I do this, I feel it wake up my hips. The joints are articulating full range of motion, not partial. My cartilage is getting full stimulation. My discs are feeling good. They're opening and closing. When I come up, I go into full extension, opposite. So it's yin and yang, opposite movements. It has it all. It has the breathing, it has the yin yang. I have vitamin D from the sky, from the sun. And I have deep breathing, oxygen. And I can't think of anything more fundamental and basic as a primal movement that we need to do. and you can find your squat. You just find your squat, and ultimately you let go of the tree or fence. You'll be able to do full squats, but this will work your foot ankle connection where a lot of people are blocked. They can't do a full squat because of that, right? And so this will slowly bring it back. And here's another thing with your feet. Relax your feet when you go down into a squat. That's where you need to pronate. When you come back up, it's going to supinate naturally. Don't try. But what I like to do, honestly, when I come up, I lock my knees and I tense everything tight for a second as I breathe in, and then I release it. I like a full contraction of everything and triple extension. And then I like a full flexion release of everything. So I go through like every part of my system and body to feel my body. To me, that's the ultimate proprioception exercise. People need to feel that proprioception. They need to wake it up. Like we talked about, people, if you didn't grow up with barefoot stuff and your body's offset and you're out of balance, off kilter, this will start to wake it up, re-educate the brain. It's okay to contract like this, and just bring it all in, fully shorten and lock it in, and then fully lengthen and open it up, and just go back and forth like this. And you'll see whoever's listening, after 3 reps, you're going to want to do 5 and 10. You're going to want to do more because it's going to be delicious. It's like eating ice cream. Like for me, I can't stop sometimes. That's why I can't eat it. This exercise for me is delicious. It's physical ice cream. And have fun with it. I would say that's it.
Okay. I'm gonna try that. I will do that, actually. I will do that tomorrow. So thank you for sharing that. Where can my audience, my followers, those who are interested in the Stretch2Go Institute, where can they find you to enroll into a course, learn more about
if you really want to look at
Fascia
the
Stretch Therapy,
descriptions of the
or
courses
Frederick
and who we
Stretch
are,
Therapy, where can they find you guys?
Examples of some video, just go to stretch2win.com, and that's basically where we are. You can find my bio, my wife, and all of our teachers. Just anything one is there. And then Stretch2Win on Instagram at Stretch2Win. You could easily find us there for what's happening, from post to post. But for now, I would say that those are the best places.
Sounds good. Thanks, Chris, for
Thank you,
being
Ian.
on my podcast. Truly been a pleasure and a privilege, actually. So thank you once again.